Hello, and welcome to Marketing for Coders, where we learn about marketing from the pros so you can turn your side projects into side businesses. And today we have Janelle Allen. Yay! Janelle is a marketer and copywriter, and she is also the host of the podcast called Level Up Your Courses. So, hey, Janelle.
Hey, Portia, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming. We're so happy to have you here. So we're just going to get right into the questions. And so number one, once again, thank you for agreeing to coming on the show. And can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Again, my name is Janelle. I am by trade an instructional designer, which is a fancy way of saying I study how adults learn and create online courses, e-learning, that type of thing based around those principles to make sure that they're instructionally sound. And so about, oh gosh, 7 years ago, I left my job and I started running an agency and did that for about 3 years and then made a pivot to start Zen courses, which the pivot was really switching who I serve. So instead of working with corporations, I started working with small business owners to help them create courses. And now I do a lot of marketing strategy. So another pivot. I don't do as much curriculum design these days. I'm doing a lot of marketing strategy for course creators. So that's who I am and what I do.
Awesome. And so that leads us to the second question. Um, you started out as an instructional designer. What
Mhm.
exactly, can you tell us a little bit more about what an instructional designer is and how is it different from marketing, being a marketing strategist and copywriter?
Yeah, it's completely different. Although I will say there are some similarities in how you approach projects. But to start off with your first question, so like I said, an instructional designer is going to study learning theory, behavioral psychology, and really dig into how particularly adults learn. And using that knowledge, an instructional designer can do a few different things. One, they can develop curriculum for colleges and universities, which is what I initially did when I came into the field. You could also be creating corporate e-learning. So for anyone who's ever maybe taken training for a job and it's been delivered via the computer, it's probably was an instructional designer involved in that. If it was good, sometimes people hack it together. Um, but really our job is to be a part of building educational experiences and making sure that they are aligned so that if you say students or your learners will be able to do X, Y, and Z, an instructional designer's job is to work with the curriculum writer and the subject matter expert to make sure that those outcomes are met. So it's very different. As far as the marketing work that I do, I'm still looking at outcomes. I'm looking at goals, but I'm helping to, craft copy. I'm looking at metrics and analytics to see where are some opportunities for improvement. So in some ways there's similarities. Like I'm still looking for gaps. I'm still looking at outcomes and how to meet them. Except I'm mostly focused on communication, messaging, positioning, that type of thing when it comes to marketing.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
A lot of people in our audience, they have a lot of questions and about copywriting and marketing. And can you tell us, like, what are some of the more common mistakes people make
Mm.
when it comes to copywriting in particular?
That's a great question. And it actually is a mistake that people also make when they're creating online courses, and that is not knowing who they're speaking to. So I see a lot of times people will not have a clear understanding of their audience. They aren't sure who their target customer is, what their needs are, what their problems are, what their level of awareness is about the problem. And until you do that initial footwork, until you do the unsexy research, it makes it really hard to market, right? Because you will be trying to talk to everybody, which is what a lot of people who find themselves in that boat, they think that they're talking to everybody, but you're not. Ideally, you're able to pinpoint one person or avatar
Mhm.
and know them so well that you it makes it so much easier to create messaging and copy.
You know what's hilarious? And I have to say that I'm guilty of making this mistake too. Like when you talk to someone who's starting a business and you're like, well, who's
Hmm.
the target audience? It's almost like they're being very clever when they're telling you, oh, everyone.
Right, right,
It's like,
right.
oh, I've never heard that before. and
Yeah.
but the thing is, like, let's say that's not your expertise in terms of doing market research. Like, what is the 101 in doing quick and dirty marketing research if you don't know
Hmm.
anything about doing marketing research?
Yeah, so a few things I like to advise people to do if they're starting out and they don't know where to go. Number one is actually the easiest one, which is look for quote unquote competitors in your market and look for ways that they're engaging with their audience. Research their offerings, research who they're targeting, look at their messaging, and take note, especially if they're successful, because that's going to give you a lot of insight into what could potentially be your target audience or target customer. And even if it's not, it might give you some insight into how you can differentiate. Also looking at where your target customer would be hanging out online. So when I work with I do marketing strategy for course creators, so we're initially looking at their audience. And what you want to hone in on is finding those sweet spots. So maybe your target audience is going to be in Facebook groups, or maybe they're in Slack channels, but going to whatever forum they're using and seeing what they're talking about, what questions, pain points, problems keep coming up. And really, like I said, it's unsexy because you want to make a list, you want to get that stuff down and
Right.
then filter through it later. So those are a couple things that you can do. Also, one thing that a lot of people don't think about is webinars. The chat sections in webinars are a good place to source questions as well. Blog comments, any blogs related to your niche are a good place to source. So really, yeah, just getting dirty and doing that work. And if you don't have the bandwidth, hiring someone to do that research, and then you sitting down and going through it and really seeing what people are talking about, what pain, what problem, the solutions they've tried, and what language they're using.
I think that's great advice, and that's something. Thank you. That's
You're
something
welcome.
Amy Hoy talks about a lot in terms
Yeah,
of
she
like
does.
looking at like hanging out in people's. She calls it like water holes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important. It's also important, like when you read magazines like Entrepreneur.com, on Entrepreneur, or I think it's Fast Company or Fast
Mm-hmm. Fast
Company
Company, Inc., all of those. Yeah.
in ink. It's there's just so much glorification of someone who comes up with the new idea, the novelty, and like when you actually sit down and talk to successful business owners, many of them they're really knowledgeable about their niche. They
Mm-hmm.
actually went to the niche and then built the product, as opposed to build the product and go to the niche. And that's so
Yeah.
important. And I think it's important. That's something that you can't do, is to hire someone, because your time is valuable too, and it's really demotivating to spend weeks, months, or years on something that people don't really like or need.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the reasons. So I have a group program where I teach people how to create courses, and that's the first thing that we do is we validate, because who wants to launch to crickets? I see so many course creators and marketers, just as you said, creating something and putting it out there, and usually that's tied to fear. Usually that's tied to fear or ego, the fear of people saying no, or just you falling in love with your idea. And we've all been guilty of it, right? Falling in love with your idea, thinking it's the best thing ever. Your spouse, partner, mom are probably hyping you up and you just run with it. But
Right.
I try
Who
to,
has vested interest in you, like outside your business?
right, right. But I'm a big proponent of mitigating risk. And so I think doing that initial work and doing the research, pre-validating your idea, and then asking for money to truly validate your idea is the safest bet. To me, it's much more riskier. It's much riskier to create something for months and then launch and no one buys.
Oh yeah, like just, and I think that's when you get true opinions as well. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't cost much for me to say this is the greatest idea in the world, but it does cost something for me to actually prepay.
Yep. Absolutely.
So getting into a bit of like being shy or ego, let's say you're a shy person, you're a shy creator, and you don't have a following on social media.
Mhm.
Um, should you even make an online course? And how would like a shy person creating an online course, how would they go about marketing it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think yes, be shy or not, there's room for you to create a course. I always, believe it or not, I tell anyone who reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I want to create a course," and if they don't have an audience or they haven't started, if they have a small audience, I always advise starting with a service. So start out doing some consulting or freelancing, putting your service out there, and see if people will buy. It also is great because it allows you to hone your process. And so you'll begin to realize, okay, these are the steps that I take to do this thing. These are the questions that people ask me over and over. And that will help you inform your course. It also validates your idea, right? So people are giving you money to solve this problem, so that there's a chance, there's a likelihood that people who maybe can't budget your services would buy a course. So that's what I would say for anyone starting out, especially if you feel shy about marketing. Do that. Or if because some people don't want to take that advice. So if you really are gung-ho about creating a course but you're not crazy about the marketing aspect, use a course marketplace like Udemy. You'll have to create it. You're kind of taking a risk. You'll have to create it, and you're using Udemy's platform, so they kind of can set the rules as far as pricing is concerned. But you can get it out there, and they are going to do some of the legwork as far as presenting your course to the public. So that's one way. I know of a handful of course creators who have gone that route and then later built their platform as their course sales increased. Um, and what was the second part of your question?
The second part is, should you still, how would you go about marketing your course? So let's say it is on
Yeah.
a platform or even on Udemy. How would you go out and tell people, hey, here's my course?
Yeah. So if you're looking for organic marketing, then that's more of a slower process. So I'll start with the faster process, which is what a lot of people want to know about. And that, believe it or not, well, I don't think it's a shocker, but ads are very useful if you're trying to get traffic quickly. So what I see a lot of my successful clients doing is they're buying ads on Google, Facebook, and they're running those ads to a landing page, and you want to get email addresses so that you can market in that way ultimately. But ads are a great way to get that fast traffic. So if you don't have the budget for ads, then you're just going to take a little bit of a longer route doing organic marketing. So some things you can do are, one, start an email list, because email marketing converts at a much higher rate than social media. So you can focus on social media as far as it's great for building awareness.
Mhm.
What I would recommend if you're shy about it is there are people who you can outsource to who can handle that for you. I but my main thing is to start some type of channel. For if you find yourself shy, podcasts are a great way to build relationships with your guests, to get your voice out there, and to build trust with your audience. And then you don't have to worry about having, your face everywhere, but people will get to know you. So that's what I would do, is have some type of broadcast channel on a platform that's going to reach, a mass audience, and then drive them back to your site or your landing page in exchange for their email address, giving them some type of valuable info.
Awesome. I'm actually going to take a step back,
Okay.
and I just want to thank you for mentioning services because because in some circles it feels like services is like it doesn't seem like the sexy option of like starting a business. It's very much
Hmm.
like product, 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 product. What is
Yeah.
your product? What is your course? But I think services is great because in order for you to be profitable, you can be profitable with like one or two clients. And with a course
Yeah.
or with like a product, you have to have like a bit more than one or two. So that's great advice. And plus it validates, like if you can't get anyone to like
Mhm.
purchase your service, maybe you need to tweak something.
Yeah, and it gives you money, right? So
Yes, that's also, I mean, that's why we're here.
yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of people want to create a course because they have heard the term passive income. I'm not going to get into that term, but starting with a service gives you money, and then you can use that money. Especially if you're, maybe, let's say you already have a job, you can use that money to fund, to invest in your products. Or if you don't, if you're going into services 100%,
Mhm.
then that pays your bills. And ultimately, that's important, right? Because I tell people all the time, building a product business is harder than building a service business. So if you're just getting started, hone your chops selling services. Like I said, there's so many benefits. You're going to get your process down. You're going to have money to pay your bills, and you'll learn how to run a business, which is a part that a lot of people overlook.
Thank you. Thank you very much because this is personally my process because I was actually taking a course in terms of learning how to build a product. And it was just so daunting to get to those magic numbers of like
Mhm.
500 people. That's a very bare minimum, by the way, on your email list.
Yeah,
1,000, 2,000, 3,000. And it just seemed like it was a lower barrier for me to just offer services. But you don't really hear that because there's the passive income myth,
yeah,
and then there's also the forbidden but you're trading time for money. And I
yeah.
mean, not the worst. That's actually a very good thing when you're starting off.
Yeah, and realistically, you have to know yourself. So that's a part that is overlooked. There's a lot of hype and sexiness around creating a product, and it can be fun, right? But for most people, it's not passive, which is why I kind of I kind of took a dig at that term earlier, because you're going to invest a lot of time up front. We talked about the research. You're also creating the product. It's not passive for a while, right? And what it really becomes, the goal is that it becomes recurring revenue, so that you kind of have it on autopilot. So either way you look at it, you're trading time for money. And for me, I'd much rather start off with something that's going to generate income if I'm going to be trading time for money, and then I can use my spare time to work on the product without feeling stressed out about, oh my gosh, this isn't paying me any money right now. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I wish more people would say that, like, because it's very much, the hype is very much about passive income. It's very much about, but you're not making money while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
And I think I think of it as more of an upfront investment. Like, yes, you'll be able to make money while you're sleeping, but you actually put forth the work and the effort first as opposed to later. So that work and effort was there. It was just something that was almost like a down payment.
Yeah, and honestly, it is the dream, right? I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say it's not the dream to, wake up to sales. I've had that personally. It feels great. You wake up and you look, you got a notification of money that came in. But I just try to be very transparent with everyone of saying the time investment in getting to that point. And I think that's what discourages a lot of people, is because they think that it's going to be easier than doing services. So you don't have to do services forever. That's why I said you got to know yourself. You got to know, okay, am I the type of person who needs to have the stability and hasn't run a business before, and maybe I need to wet my, you know, get used to everything before I get started? Or do I want to go all in on a product, and I like, building a SaaS or building a course or whatever it may be, and I'm willing to deal with the uncertainty, because it is going to be uncertain for a little while.
Yeah, it's going to be uncertainty. Yeah, I think being and starting and running a business is very much about managed risk.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Speaking about risk, moving on to the next question. We're in the middle of a major pandemic.
hmm
Um, I personally, when I'm on Twitter or when I'm like reading the New York Times, it's a lot of warranted, by the way, very warranted, but there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of there's a lot of fear around the uncertainty. There's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of like I don't want to say short-term thinking, but there's a lot of thinking decisions made out of fear.
Mm.
So how does like one go about running a successful business like during a crisis and not get stuck in like a scarcity mindset?
Yeah, this is a great question. And it's something I've been writing my audience about because, particularly with course creators, I'm seeing a lot of people who are wondering, should they be marketing right now? Should they slash prices on their products and services? And my answer is yes, you should be marketing, although how you market changes. And no, you don't need to slash. Your work isn't suddenly worth less because of this. Um, so I think that to deal with the situation we're in, one of the things that you need to do as a business owner, which actually, if you think about it, has nothing to do with the pandemic, and that is being agile and being able to adapt, right? So that's just business 101, knowing, being able to pivot, in other words. And we're in a time where a lot of people all of a sudden are having to pivot.
Right.
So what that really comes down to is having empathy and knowing where your audience is at, because now everyone's customer avatar is different, right? It's more complex. They have more going on in their lives. And so you really have to reconnect with your audience and know, okay, what is important to them at this time? How are they struggling? What new problems do they have? And how can you provide value? And looking at that and making a pivot. So for some people, that means, they still offer the same products, but they have extended payment plans. We've seen corporations
Good
adjusting,
idea,
their strategies in real time, right? Um, for other people, that means, okay, maybe my $2,000 course isn't going to sell. So maybe I do a series of workshops and charge people, $50 to $100 a pop. You just have to try things. Maybe it's a subscription model that you move to. And that's really my answer. Be mindful of where your audience is at. What are the new problems they have? And pivot so that you can deliver value in a way that works for them during this time, because a lot of people are scared with the economy and everything.
thanks. And it really goes back to what you said earlier about really knowing your audience, knowing like, what
Yeah.
their needs are, and knowing like how to best serve them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty. And let's see. This is the last question, and this actually goes more into your services. So,
Okay.
so I see that you audit courses that aren't selling well, and we're talking about courses in particular, online courses. What are some common reasons why a course might not hit its sales target?
um so I would say what I've seen, and just to clarify, sometimes that's the case when I do the marketing audit. Sometimes it's just a client feels like they could be selling more. So they're doing okay, but they feel like they could be doing better. Usually it's related to their marketing strategies. So, um, for example, a client I'm working with right now, he's got a lot of courses, and his audience is probably, we're doing the research right now, but they're probably overwhelmed and just unaware of everything that he offers. So one thing I've noticed, again, through working with clients, is simpler is always better. Less offers, being crystal clear on who you serve and your value proposition is going to sell better than having a million different products. So that's one thing. Just, it could be too many products. It's usually related to how they're marketing. So their messaging maybe not hitting with their audience. So, and that usually comes down to they haven't done the research, what we started
Right.
off with,
What
right?
we're
So,
preaching, like that's what I think do. Do
yeah,
more research.
yeah, because like I said, that research component really helps you to be able to communicate and write copy that's going to connect. And then the other thing I would say is just some people copywriting isn't their thing. So, they may not have set up the systems, the email marketing systems, because they just shy away from writing copy. And so it's just a lack of having systems in place.
And I guess in that case, they have to figure out if they want to level up or if they want to like outsource this. And outsourcing is a
Yeah.
great method
Yeah, absolutely.
because you can't be great at everything.
No, and you shouldn't. You'll burn out, you'll absolutely burn out. So that's really, I'm glad you said that, because that is the dividing line that I see between my clients who, are doing really well with 6 and 7 figure businesses, and the ones who struggle. It's not being able to let go. My best clients, they outsource, they focus on what some people call their zone of genius, and doing a few things and really getting deep with those things and doing them well. And then they outsource what they shouldn't, they don't try to work on everything, in other words.
Right. They don't try to spread themselves too thin. They don't
Yeah.
think they should do everything. I think that's great advice. And I think that's like a common problem. It's like, okay, I can do all of the above. And it's like, no, you pick out what is your unfair advantage? What is your unfair talent? And then
Hmm.
everything else you outsource out.
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely costly. So, sometimes when you're starting out, you do have to do a lot of different things. But
Mhm.
that's another reason that I say start with services, because you're going to make some money and then you can invest that back into your business, and you can outsource some things. So, for example, it could be hiring a virtual assistant. Like, I had my initial burnout back in 2017, and I hired a virtual assistant, and now I'm just like, how was I trying to do all of this stuff? So it could be as simple as that, but definitely starting and building that CEO mentality and not trying to do everything.
I know what I do personally is I go to Upwork.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to
Mm-hmm.
Upwork. I look for someone, like I needed to do some initial research on restaurants in X location, let's say, and they were able to like generate a list of like 100 restaurants in X location, for example. And it was really
Yeah.
convenient. I think what else I would do, and I know this will take more effort, but I think interns and college students, as long as you pay them, um,
Yeah.
as long as you pay them, like if that you could see their work, like why not lean on their expertise?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's one I've heard of people. I haven't done it personally, but it's definitely something I've heard of.
Well, we are at the end of our interview. Janelle, is there anything that you would like to promote?
Well, I just would say for anyone out there listening, if you want to create a course, I have a group program called Finish Your Damn Course. So
Uh,
you can
It's
head
the
over to
point.
my. You can either find that by going to finishyourdamncourse.com or head to my website janelleallen.com. And also, if your marketing is your issue and you're looking for an audit and you have some things set up that you want an outside perspective on, again, go to my website janelleallen.com and click on the work with me and find out more.
Well, once again, Janelle, thank you very much for joining us. And all those things we'll have in the show notes below. And keep safe, keep healthy. And I hope to speak to you soon. This was great.
Yeah, thanks, Portia. Same to you. Stay safe out there.
Thanks, Janelle. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.